Jesse Cardinal, who will be Skyping in a little while, is Métis from the Kikono Métis settlement in northern Alberta. She is a coordinator with Keepers of the Athabasca, a watershed protection group that is comprised of First Nations, Métis, settlers, and scientists who work together to bring light to the need for the protection of water. Keepers of the Athabasca is a subgroup of the larger Keepers of the Water organization. Jessie has been involved in organizing many events, such as the Tar Sands Healing Walk, Idle No More events, and conferences.
So I'm just going to do a quick introduction. Tansi, Jessie Cardinal, Nancy Gassin, Kikino Ochinia, Niuichi, Luawak, and Keta, Kana Wita, Kate Nepi, Ikone, Ayis, Niawak, Inoti, Otaskata, Kisi, Nakatieta, Nepi, Osam, Nepi, Oma, Ima, Tiwi, Yimada. My name is Jessie Cardinal from Kikino, and I'm with Keepers of the Water, and it's people who work to protect water, and the water is sacred. I'm currently taking the EO1, so I'm learning to speak what was my language as well. So I sent Lana over a PowerPoint presentation. I think this will be better than just me coming up with stuff. And it'll kind of give you hopefully a picture of what's happening in Alberta from Keepers of the Athabasca perspective. Lana?
Yeah?
We have the slide up?
Yeah, it's on.
Okay, so the first slide is Keepers of the Water. And Keepers of the Water back in 2006, there was on the Mackenzie, way up in the Northwest Territories on the Mackenzie River, there was elders at that time who were already being concerned about the water. And Keepers of the Athabasca watershed, the river itself is a spur and it flows all the way down and keeps on going through Fort McMurray, Fort McKay, and all the way into Northwest Territories. And so I'm with Keepers of the Athabasca, and we're a part of the greater Keepers of the Water. And if you look at this other map on slide 3, you'll see some of the Arctic Basin, and so it's quite large. You have the Athabasca, the Peace, the Mackenzie, and these are all watersheds that are connected. Slide 4. This is one of the events that we hosted annually. It went for 5 years, and it was the Healing Walk. The website is still active if you guys want to look at it. There's some really great videos on there, pictures, good information about the tar sands. And we decided to end the Healing Walk in 2014 just because it seemed like that the focus was only on Fort McMurray at the time, and that there were other communities that weren't getting the attention that they so dearly need. I think people that, think of tar sands and aren't really from the area, they think Fort McMurray only, and there's issues all over in the tar sands deposits. There's one great big deposit in the Peace region, in the Fort McMurray Wabasca region, and in the Cold Lake region, and so we really want to help work with these other communities that need our help. However, it just so happened that this year in 2015 that the community itself, one of the First Nation communities in the Fort McMurray region, hosted a healing gathering, and it was really nice because it was nice to know that we're still going to continue having events up there. Keepers of the Athabasca helped, so they did medicine workshops, traditional workshops. They brought in different Indigenous people to do healing work. And so the plan is for Fort McMurray First Nation to continue hosting healing gatherings. So they do go to the tar sands, but it's changed a little bit. So it's no longer the tar sands healing walk. This year it was called a healing gathering. So on slide 5, because there's two types of mining. There's open pit mining and there's in situ mining. Most people don't even know about in situ mining or really understand open pit mining because of the tailings ponds. And if you look at that first picture, there's the Athabasca River flowing. And those are tailings ponds right beside the Athabasca River, and there's about a 2-kilometer separation that separates those toxic tailings ponds from the Athabasca River. And there have been studies that say that the tailings ponds are seeping, and like the fellow mentioned earlier, that's something that our governments have chose not give the credit where it's due, but we know that they're leaking. And so that just shows you, and the thing about tailings ponds too that I'm not sure if people know is there's no cure, there's no treatment for tailings ponds. So every time another tailings pond is made, it's all a science experiment right now. So right now when companies are getting approved for projects and then they go to their environmental assessment and they say, you know, these are our tailings ponds, this is how we're going to treat it. It's all based on a science experiment. There's nothing proven right now to say that we have a safe way or even any kind of way to do anything with these. Right now, what they're approving on is something called end-pit lakes, where they take the heavy stuff out of the tailings ponds and it's supposed to sink to the bottom and then become kind of like a lake where fish swim and birds swim and stuff like that. And that's in the very early stages. That's not even, we don't even know if that's gonna work. And so that's tailings ponds. Slide 6. Just a little bit about the tailings ponds. So the birds are always they're always attracted to the tailings pond. So in the first picture, that's a picture of the tailings pond. The second picture I took on my way to Montana one time, just to show you how a bird could easily think that that's, you know, a freshwater body to land on. And we have like some documented reports of ducks perishing. Recently we had, I think, blue herons perishing. These are just the ones documented. Like, my speculation is that there's a whole lot of birds that are dying all the time in tailings ponds. So slide 7. Oh, and just really quick on slide 6. There was a report by worldwatch.org. They estimate over the death toll of 166 million birds over the next 50 to 60 years in the tar sands area. So slide 7, oil spills, they happen, they're happening regularly. This first slide is the CNRL spill. The second slide is the Lubicon spill. The CNRL spill was, there's two types of in situ mining. So there's open pit mining and in situ mining. In situ mining is surpassing open pit mining in Alberta. And there's two types of in situ mining. There's SAGD, which some of you may have heard of. It's steam assisted gravity, which is putting steam in the ground, warming it up, bringing it up in pipes. And then the CSS, cyclic steam stimulation, or huff and puff. Dr. Kevin Timoney has stated that this shouldn't even be a method that's used. So in this case, in the first picture, it was the huff and puff or CSS that was used. And basically what it did was it cracked the earth in all kinds of places, and oil came, and it's not oil, it's crude. It was heated everywhere, and this is the result of what happened. That happened in 2013. There was a report of an oil spill happening in that same location in 2009. The First Nation people still believe that that oil spill is spilling. And it's really hard to say because it's in a military zone, so it's not easily accessible to even get to assess it. So this is just some of the kinds of things we're seeing in Alberta. And then the second one, if you go to the Greenpeace website, you can read more about the Lubicon spill where, you know, people were getting sick, they had to evacuate the community. We recently hosted a gathering up in northern Whitford in Dene country in high level, and they've had numerous spills, pipeline failures and spills into their territory, and they're telling us these spills are not being cleaned up properly. So the AER, the Alberta Energy Regulator, and the companies will go on media and say that everything's fine, the cleanup is done, and it's the communities that are left with it. And the community out on this land, they see it firsthand, and they're telling us, no, it's not cleaned up, it's still there. And so those are issues of, you know, not proper cleanup. Slide 8 is just more on oil spills. Just they're all the time. Like pipeline spills happen all the time. The biggest one in Canadian history, the Nexon spill. When did that happen? That was in about June, July, and that happened in the Fort McMurray region. That was a year-old pipe. And this was a system that was supposed to be a world-class mechanical system that would like fail-proof almost. And it was only a year, the pipe itself was only a year old, and it was a system failure. That was an Asian-owned company, I think it's Japanese. And again, that's only about maybe 10 kilometers from a First Nation community. And so, and we were phoning people in that community because we know quite a few people in the Fort McMurray First Nation, and they weren't even being told, first of all, that there was a spill. Like, there should have been people going door to door to say there's a spill, the wind is going to be blowing this way at this time, you know, because they're downwind of this toxic stuff. And again, the cleanup and just the devastation, and again, what this fellow talked about earlier, like, the social impacts are huge. So slide 9, what's at stake? These are some of the ducks that have perished in the tailings ponds, and that's the Athabasca River in its better form. Just you can see the boreal forest, and it's just so rich and so much, you know, like there's so much life there. So. Slide 10, a little bit on monitoring. The monitoring, we have the progressive conservative government in Alberta. They were in power for 44 years. They're very focused on only the oil industry. We're very close-minded on diversifying our economy. Anybody who tried to speak out against the oil industry or the tar sands industry were basically labeled as terrorists and things like that. And so at that time the monitoring was very poor. They did it was when Jim Prentice, I think, was the Premier of Alberta, that they actually went on record and said that Alberta had a world-class monitoring system, which most people in Alberta knew not to be true. So that was interesting. And but they were trying to get this world-class monitoring system. They had aspirations, which was good. So, I mean, groups like us, we were all working, we were both means. And what I find is there's a lot of confusion, a lot of kind of arguing over where the money's coming from, where the money's going, which kind of monitoring is going to be done. And from an Indigenous perspective, we're just left out of it all. We're like, hello, we have lots of modern techniques, we have lots of information we could provide to help monitoring. None of that was taken into consideration. So there's been a lot of frustration from the First Nations and the Métis in the area to even move this forward, and it kind of seems to be stagnant. And I'm just like, part of the message I'm trying to get is like, when we have governments and when we have even in other ingos and people that are really, you know, listen to the Indigenous people, they will move forward, but if there's always going to be experts and discrediting the indigenous knowledge, then we're going to continue on the way we're going. Slide 11, the Lower Athabasca Regional Plan. They aspired to, because it was just it's been chaos in Alberta, like the oil industry, the gas industry. Andrew can speak to that, like the fracking. It's been one big free-for-all. And so the government put in the land use management framework, and so they broke Alberta into all these different sections. And basically, what they were trying to do was create some kind of how to use the land. One of the first areas they went to tackle was the tar sands area, the Fort McMurray area, which is known as the Lower Athabasca Regional Plan. And so they broke that into different policies. So you have, or frameworks, you have surface water quantity framework, surface water quality framework, you have tailings ponds management. And again, I attended meetings for 2 years, both as keepers of the Athabasca and keepers of the Athabasca and sorry, I just got for me of the Athabasca and as a Métis person, and very little of our input was by the end, like the beginning of the draft to the final draft. I was like, wow, like this hasn't changed. And so we're really hoping with this new NDP government that that we're gonna see some change, that they're gonna review it. And yeah, so that's the Lower Athabasca Regional Plan. There's a lot of issues with that. I'm going to go into what's at stake really quick. This is Francois Paulette. He's a Dene leader from Fort Smith area, Northwest Territories. And so back to water. Water is sacred. Water levels are dropping. So it's a little bit confusing when we talk about climate change and they say sea levels are rising. There is some contradiction because actually, like inland here in Alberta, water levels are dropping. And so this year, the Athabasca River was one of its lowest. And now we have all kinds of studies coming out saying, you know, there was continuous drought. Like there was a study recently done that went back 800 years. And they said, we've seen, you know, consecutive years of drought. And then in the 30s there was drought. So yes, the water levels drop and people are like, oh, it's normal. Well, no, it's not normal because we have climate change, and what's contributing to climate change is these industries. So back in the day, people could survive low water levels. You know, there was water to be had because there was still lakes, there was still streams, there was still water. Today, we're competing with industry for our water. And the PC government, what they did was put industry to have first access to water. And so right now as it stands, this is some of the work that the environmental organizations are trying to do, is place water as a human right as number one, because how it's been set up in Alberta is that we're like, I don't know, third, fourth, or fifth after all the industries. So it's a huge concern as we move forward and the water levels continue to drop, and we're dealing with climate change. It's not the same as it was. We could have survived it back then, but now we have industries that are taking our water. And so I'm just going to skip through here to slide 16. This is just some of the positive, hopeful work that we're doing. So there's northern Saskatchewan, there's uranium companies trying to get in there. There's all kinds of companies trying to get in. That's bush. These people are like bush people. They're Dene. They hunt, they fish, they trap. That is their livelihood. The little kids even are fluent in Dene. And we went there because they put a blockade because the companies were going in and like taking down their chop lines and just doing exactly what they did in Compton. If you guys know, the most dangerous highways in Alberta, and that's due to in situ mining, and that's Highway 881. And so when they needed help and I saw this highway, I felt sadness, but I also felt hope that there's people that are doing what we should have been doing 15, 20 years ago on Highway 881. And just again, going back to the wildlife, like connecting back with nature. This is just by my place here. The geese, like the first picture is the baby geese, and then that's them all grown up, and they're mostly all heading south now. And we have so much to learn from the wildlife. Like geese are such good parents, you know, they teach their young how to fly, they prepare them for the journey. There's just there is a lot at stake. Number 20, this is one of the projects we did in Fort Chip. It was a pilot solar project, that's the Elders and Youth Lodge. Since then there have been more solar projects opening up in Indigenous communities. And so we have a lot of hope. We're not only putting it in solar, we need to diversify. So that means a lot of things. And just balance and sustainability, something we can all do, whether you're in the city or the country. If you go to Australia, in the city, everybody has a clothesline. Everybody in the apartment has a clothesline. So even if you're in the city, there's ways you can live sustainably. Hunting, trapping, fishing, that's still very much alive. So I'll just take 1 minute to wrap up here. Hunting, trapping, and fishing. So right now is moose season. Everybody's hunting, and they're not over hunting, but that's how you fill your freezer. It's like, and I find more and more people are going back to the land. Like more people are appreciating their moose meat. They're wanting to hunt because, I mean, meat is getting expensive, and I think it's a good thing that people are going back to the land, and I'm hoping that by doing that, that they're going to stand up for what's happening to it right now. Harvesting berries, that's huge. Fishing, that's cutting up moose meat. Gardening, these are some past events. We did a healing walk in Cold Lake, healing walk in Fort McMurray. The past and upcoming events, that's events we did in the past. We actually had Andrew Nikifork speak at that event. And and then just couple of our elders that we work with, Elder Nancy Scanny and Elder Violet Clark, they're amazing knowledge holders. A lot of what we share about traditional knowledge, they are some of the people that teach us. And so it's a complex situation. Not all Indigenous people up here feel or think the same. Right now, the tar sands industry is what people are reliant on for their jobs. We are hoping with this new NDP government that they diversify the economy. We need the leadership to lead us into this new world. And I said, like, these $500,000 salaries that people are making now, that's not realistic. Like, it is going to be a lifestyle change, but we don't have an option. It's like when you look at like water or no water, it's not like we really have a choice. So hopefully that you guys got something out of this presentation. Sorry about having to Skype in. It would have been great to be there, and thank you for your time.
And then just an announcement in terms of getting involved and continuing the conversation. A bunch of us are organizing a people's assembly on the climate. They've happened a few times before in the city, and there's a history of this, obviously, of people's assemblies in Latin America and elsewhere. This will be happening November 27th to 29th. So we'll have workshops, assemblies, and it'll be an easier way to get involved in the organizing in terms of all the different groups involved. And I would like to thank very much all of our speakers for joining us today, especially Andrew, who stuck around, and to everyone for coming today.